Hello everybody, my name is Joshua Garcia and it has been a while since I posted a video, but in that time I was able to pick up the ANVIL Foundry 10.5 gallon brew system. Now, this is something that has worked well for me and been great to add to my brew day, but I want to go over some of its strengths, its weaknesses, and little quirks about it so you can make a decision if this is something to add to your brew day or if it would be a good tool to use for you. Okay, so this is the ANVIL Foundry Brew System. I do have the 10.5 gallon version, but that does not mean that you get to brew 10 gallons of beer. It is a all-in-one brew system, so it's sort of brew in a bag, which means that the tank capacity has to be able to hold the mash water and the grain all at the same time. So that 10 gallon really puts you at 5-gallon batch sizes, which is perfect for me. You know, that fits perfectly in a slim tank keg, or, you know, ends up with probably about 2 cases of beer, somewhere approximately there. And you know, at the moment, that's perfect for what I'm looking for. If you did want to go to a 10-gallon system, the brew in a bag just isn't going to be the best way to go about it, in my opinion. I mean, you'd need like 20 gallons of volume. So sticking with the mash tun tank separate from the boil kettle is probably the best if you want to scale up really big. So why did I go with an all-in-one electrical brew kettle as opposed to the mash tun and boil that I was doing? And for me, it's a little specific to my own situation, but I'll give you my top 3 reasons. And the first off is the compact storage space of it. If you're somebody like me who lives in an apartment or just has limited space or anything like that, having the mash tun, boil kettle, strike water kettle, a bunch of other peripherals and things like that really can just be cumbersome in your storage. And it also all works in one singular system. So not only does it take up less space in storage, but it actually takes up less space as far as your kitchen footprint. So if you have a space outside to set up like a turkey fryer and do a high BTU boil, that's awesome and really great. But for me, doing it in the kitchen or wanting to be comfortable indoors, being able to have this smaller footprint inside, in the comfort, be able to not take up a lot of space, that was a big selling point for me. And secondly is the control that it has. So in the past, I was using something like a sous vide heat stick to try and get my mash temperature to the proper water temperature and keep it there, because if you're trying to work with gas, you're just watching it very closely, adjusting it and trying to keep it in the exact temperature while you're doing other things. And what I love is the ability to just sort of set it to the temperature I want to get to, have the water get there, and just hold there until I'm ready for it. Because not every time am I ready to use it exactly when it's ready to be used. So being able to have that control is great. And there's certain other things with this system that allow you for convenience of use, such as being able to set delays. So you can set everything up as far as what your mash water is going to be and everything like that, and the temp, and then set it on a delay and go to bed. And when you wake up in the morning, you will have your water at exactly that proper degree, ready for your grains, ready to mash before you're even able to pour your first cup of coffee. So it can save you a lot of time, and there's a lot of convenience there as well, which if you're looking for time or you just find yourself wasting time with a lot of your brew day, this can give you a head start on stuff like that. And it can also just give you that control to be able to walk away, do other things, and know that this isn't going to go and do anything crazy like come to a boil with your mash grain or anything inside. It hooks in via 120 just standard electrical outlet, which is great. I don't have to go fuss with any sort of electrical changing, and also I can't do that because my landlord would go crazy. Before, I was using my standard gas stove and it did not have a lot of BTU output. So with that, I was really only able to do 3-gallon batches because heating water past that would just take way too long. But with the ANVIL Foundry system, I'm able to heat up 7 gallons and it's really not an issue. And those were the selling points for me, you know, convenience, accuracy, and storage space. So a few things about the operation, and probably the most important one being your mash. Now, with the ANVIL Foundry, they have a nice little chart in there, and it's very simple. It's how many pounds of grain you have and how many gallons of water. And if you are sparging, you're really just sparging with a gallon of water every time, and nothing else is changing. Another thing is that, like in Beersmith, they do have the ANVIL Foundry system listed as a plugin, so you can see your numbers and everything like that. But for some reason, they still like to give you the lower amount of mash water and higher amount of sparge water. So I just kind of don't follow that recommendation from them. I don't know why they put that in there. I'm going to go with the factory, with the manufacturer's recommendation. I'm going to go with ANVIL's recommendation of just using a certain amount of gallons to pounds of grain. I feel like they built the system, they know exactly what they're doing, so that's probably the best way to go. And it's simpler and easier, and I think it yields better results anyways. If you have the option, I definitely recommend trying to do the sparge. You don't really lose anything doing it, and the nice thing about the Anvil system is that when you pull your grain basket up to drain out, you can then go and set your boil kettle to boil. And so while you're sparging and doing a slow rinse of your grain, you have the boil kettle bringing that wort that's down below up to a boil. So you're not losing any time anyways doing the sparge, whereas before sparging could have been a lengthy process, and now you can do a slow sparge and you're losing no time at all, because in that same time you're waiting for the wort to come up to boil anyways. But the efficiency that you get from sparging is not going to make or break your beer. You're going to be fine. So if you're somebody who doesn't want to fuss around with sparging, or for some reason can't, or if there's anything like that, don't fret too much. Just doing the standard mash is going to be absolutely fine for you. My efficiencies are still up, and I have done a few without sparge and haven't seen a huge drop in efficiency. So you're going to be fine if you don't want to do the sparge. So with my time with the ANVIL Brew System, I was able to brew a few beers. The first one I did was a winter spice ale, and that was, just pretty standard. There was nothing crazy going on there, and it worked really well. I had a good efficiency, everything was great. My second one, though, is a beer that I really like, which is a wee heavy, and that is a much stronger beer. And scaling that up with my recipe that I usually use for the 3-gallon with mash tun kettle, that ended up with a lot of grain, and I might have screwed up the scaling of that a bit, but you should know that the heartier beers, the ones where you need a lot of grain to get the potency that you're looking for, that becomes a little bit harder in the ANVIL brew in a bag style. So that is something to consider, because when I speak about the ANVIL Foundry, the convenience of the mash, being able to kind of set it and forget it, it's not as simple as putting everything into a mash tun and being done. It does take a little bit more work, and depending on your style is the kind of work that you're looking at. See, if you're doing something like a pale ale where it's all kind of base malt, nothing really too glutinous or anything like that to stick the mash, and a lower grain bill, you might just need to stir it once or twice throughout the mash, do something like that, but nothing too crazy. But if you're using something like a wheat beer where stuck mash happens quite often, or a heavy beer with a lot of grain, you're going to need to be stirring quite a bit more, maybe even removing the grain basket, letting everything drain a bit, and then re-putting it back in. And if you're recirculating, you're going to need to be able to control that flow rate or turn it on and off very intermittently, because if you are flowing water into the top of the grain basket faster than it's draining out the bottom, it will overflow and create a mess and push grain into your boil kettle. So, I've made those mistakes, and it's kind of just a learning process. So you're going to want to just take some time to learn everything, and, you just know that you're going to run into some issues. It's a different process. So once we're done with the mashing and everything like that, that's really the process that is different here. Once we get to the boil, it's like working with a giant kettle. And really the only difference here is that your kettle space from the top of the wort to the top of the kettle becomes a lot larger. And so that's sort of the biggest change here, is that with all that extra space, the current hop spider that you're using probably isn't going to actually fit, because if it has to hang off the side of the kettle and it's only so big, it might not actually reach the wort down below, leading you to either have to buy another hop spider that goes down farther, or try and rig something up where you're kind of hanging it down lower and it's just sort of free floating. But if you're just throwing your hops straight in, then you're good. There's nothing to do, because it's the same as boiling in a kettle. So you brewed your beer, you chilled it down. You can do whirlpool as well. You can use that recirculation pump and get it in there to do a whirlpool for you. And the drain at the bottom with that right angle to it for the whirlpool works really well. Again, that's going to be available on kettles as well, but it's just great that it's here, and it leaves behind a lot of trub as well. So you're going to be getting a lot more cleaner results off the bat, not having to use an auto siphon, not dumping straight into the bucket. If you're somebody who has a kettle that doesn't have the thermometer attachment or nozzle at the bottom or anything like that, then this is going to be a nice upgrade for you, as far as it does the same thing as those professional kettles that have the drain and the thermometer, but it's just nice that it's here already. So if you didn't already have that, that's already a nice upgrade for you as well. So you've mashed your grain, you boiled your wort, you chilled it down, got it in the fermenter, and now all that's left to do is a full-on cleanup. And I've got to say, cleanup is pretty darn easy with this thing. I mean, you have the grain basket, which might be the hardest part just because it's got the mesh bottom. The grain like to stick in there and they can be a little bit hard to get out, but it's not that bad. I mean, cleaning a mash tun was always so hard to get down into and really clean out anyways. This is actually a lot easier. And then for the kettle's even easier than that because you can just kind of fill it up with water, rinse it out, scrub it down really good, and then rinse it out again. The unit is light. Handling it is not a problem at all. It's just big and bulky, so you do just need to be able to kind of handle it in a certain way. You might find it a little bit awkward just because of its shape and how long it is, but because it's so light and everything like that, cleanup is actually extremely easy and just a matter of just getting it at the right angle for your sink and being able to scrub it down. But otherwise, for the average home brewer, I think this is going to cover everything you need it to do. So if you are looking to upgrade your system or even get into all grain brewing for the first time, highly recommend it. It's a great system to go with. It'll be interesting to see if it has problems down the line or what the lifespan of a unit like this is going to be. But for the cost and usage of it, I would say this is going to cover most of what you're looking to do. And so those are my thoughts on the ANVIL Foundry Brew System. If you are thinking about getting one, let me know in the comments. If you have one and you've come across anything that you don't like, or if you have your own opinions on it, would love to hear those as well. But otherwise, I think that's where I'm gonna leave it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.